call.
Eric Bordeaux.
Brady Pelletier.
Christy Wood.
Eunice Landry.
David Latchaw.
Matt Jazokis.
Ann Pierce.
Jason Henry.
Tim Broderick.
Heidi Duford.
Mike Fulham.
Jude Dumont.
Lauren Ferruccio.
Tiny Lauren.
With that, I ask that everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion to adjourn. Next up is the agenda review, so I'll take a motion on that.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Any additions, subtractions that we need to add on here? Tim, Heidi? Anybody else on the board? All right, hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Next up is approval of meeting minutes of November 18th and the regular meeting and non-public meeting.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for November 18th, 2025, and a motion to approve and seal indefinitely the meeting minutes for the November 18th, 2025 non-public.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Any changes? Seeing none, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, well, this will bring us to the first public input. And I'll remind the public that is, again, I know on social media they blew up today about how much time public input, but it's been the same thing up here for every year. Is come to mic, state your name. It's 3 minutes to come up to the mic and talk, or 15 minutes running time for everybody that's inside the room, along with established up here as well. So if there's anybody on public input that would like to come to the mic, I ask you to come up and state your name and get your 3 minutes. All right, with that, I will close public input. And we will move right on to school board. Is anybody on the school board in this make any announcements? Seeing none here, now move on. Next up is finance. It's in our packet. Heidi, what's highlights for us?
Joe, we're doing very well at this point. There's nothing concerning.
Any questions for Heidi? All right. Seeing none. Prospect Mountain High School principal's report. Latchaw.
I think it's pretty straightforward. School's doing a lot of great stuff, lots of awards, lots of recognitions. So if you haven't taken the time to look through that, you definitely should. There's a link in there for a really impactful and amazing article that was recently shared about our school. So if you didn't get a chance to see that, shoot me an email. I can share you the link. Happy to answer any questions. Or
Can you just for the public to say what that just what the article was about, so we know?
Sure. It was a kind of an ongoing story where one of our young freshman students met with a reporter and later on a photographer that came to the school, and really it went into great detail how impactful this school has been for this young student and how much it has really changed her academic and social output as a young person growing up in high school. And a lot of people, when they read it, you almost get to the point where you're choked up how special this was for this kid. So it reminds us all as teachers, as parents, as board members, that for a lot of kids, these are very formative years. And at the end of the day, our job is to do everything we can to make it a special experience, as special as we can for our students. And I think this article hit the nail on the head in that regard. So if you haven't seen it, shoot me an email and I'll share it with you.
I don't know. It's an amazing article. Tim, do you have something?
Well, only I don't think the principal mentioned that the student doesn't reside in Elton or Barnstead, and the reason the article was written is because we are currently the only school in New Hampshire operating an open enrollment program, and this is one of the students who was able to choose this school because of that program. That's probably an important piece, and I think that her story, as Dave already said, is very compelling and makes the case for why some families find choices like this to be exceedingly valuable for their kids, because in the end, for all the various reasons we've been working on these things, everything we do is about impact on students and outcomes for students.
Anything else for the principal? Seeing none. Next up is building and grounds report. I'll turn it over to Eric because we had a meeting tonight.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Broderick.
Throw it right back at you.
The fiscal 27 updated 5-year capital plan is in your email and on the table in front of you. The Buildings and Grounds Committee went through it earlier. It's on your agenda under action items, but there's really no action that needs to be taken tonight, because until we identify funding sources and get more feedback from you, there's really no action to take. So I think the most important thing is that, you know, we set a target for the amount of capital work that we think it might make sense to spend on this coming summer, based on our current financial position, which is still, it's early in the, you know, it's midpoint of the year, it's a little early, we don't know what our position is going to be, but also our anticipated revenue position. So we think about a $200,000 target made sense for this year, so that's what it was built around. And one of the nice things about capital planning that I think is really important is when you look across the 5-year plan, if you add up everything there, you're going to come out just under $5 million. And the reason I think that is important is because when school districts look annually at what do we need and ask themselves, well, can we wait, can we wait, can we wait? And they do that one object at a time, right? You're only looking at a roof, or you're only looking at windows, or you're only looking at a field, or whatever the issue is. It's easy to fall behind because you don't even know what the things are that you're not doing that are going to come due. So by having a process like this, I think it gives you a much better frame of reference when you do have to make these decisions later this year, when we know more about revenue or surplus or whatever it might be. And you have a chance to evaluate, here are all the things that we have on the table for the next 5 years. You can reprioritize this. You can tell us, hey, look, we understand why you had this in year 1, but let's push it to year 2 and move this other thing up because we think it's more important, whatever it is. So I think for tonight, that was the important thing, and that was the conversation that we had in greater depth and detail with the members of the Buildings and Grounds Committee.
Any questions?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm going to skip over Mr. Christie real quick, because I know we're probably going to have a more depth conversation. And we'll go to you for student rep.
All right. So, winter sports have kicked off at the schools, and I actually forgot to include wrestling in my document here, but I had a conversation with Mr. Papasino this morning, and he told me that there are over 20 kids on the wrestling teams between the middle school and the high school, and I think that that's just amazing, considering just a few years ago there was like 3 kids on the wrestling team, so I think it's amazing to note that improvement. Our music department has had a pretty big month, so our choir performed at the All-in-Town tree lighting ceremony, and we actually have a winter concert tomorrow where all of the different band and choir ensembles will be performing, so I would encourage you all to come and support our students. In our National Art Honor Society painted windows at 2 libraries, so the Oscar Foss Library in Barnstead and the Gilman Library in Alton, and also the Senior Center in Alton, and they came out great. It's just a fun thing that they do for the community to like spread some holiday cheer, and I think we have some very talented artists in our school. And I also wanted to take a moment to talk about some of the NHS projects that we have upcoming. So our NHS members are just really hard at work at doing some things for our school, but not only our school, our community. So like Ava Pelletier has her Poetry Out Loud event next month, and Zoe Jane Ransom, like last year she made friendship bracelets for pediatric patients at the Huggins Hospital in Wolfboro, and she's doing that again this year, and I think that's just such a kind thing. So I think that that's definitely something to know in our school.
Great. Any questions? As always, thank you very much.
Next up will be athletic development and Mr. Christie.
Sure. There's a packet there. By the way, I created that with AI in about 2 minutes. That I actually have like a version where the wolf like animates and grabs the football. Like it's amazing what that does. But that would have taken me like a day before AI. But one thing just to piggyback, Jude made me think about it. Just all the great things going on at the school. Our SALT group is up to 26 kids. They're currently doing a toy or a food drive with non-perishable food items. We're going to deliver those in a couple of weeks. We're doing them basically at the games, like, you know, bring a canned good to get in type of thing. We've actually partnered with the Revs, and all the food that they're getting today at the Revs night is going to get bundled together. We're going to go on the 8th of January and deliver that to a place in Laconia. And then we're going to go visit a assisted living facility and play some games with folks. And we were actually asked to do it after the holidays because generally everyone is trying to do it now, and then everyone's in need of either hanging out with people and being visited or food. So just a lot of great things, you know, going on across the school, especially in terms of giving back to the community. What I'm here to talk about today is football. Want to discuss the potential of adding varsity tackle football here at Prospect Mountain, and I'm looking ultimately for the approval of the board to do that for the fall of 2026. We do have a unique opportunity in front of us that's been presented by the NHIAA. Typically, the way this goes is you have to play 1, maybe even 2 years of JV to even be considered to be added into a varsity schedule. Due to some divisional realignment, what I mean by that is schools having to co-op with others, it's bumping them into other divisions. And I was approached by the football committee for the NHIAA asking if we would be interested in stepping in and playing. Go ahead, Tim.
And it's important to me to follow up on that because I don't like bringing a school board something that we haven't talked about before and asking you to make a decision about it. We talked about a 5-year capital plan tonight that we'll come back with in 3 months, and we'll come back with 2 months after that before we ask you to make a decision. We didn't call the NHIAA saying, hey, we want to play football next year. They had these unique circumstances, and they reached out to James. And that's why we're in this situation. Regardless of what you decide, that's why it seems fast. Because normally we wouldn't even be able to play varsity if we were starting next year. And they came to us and said, hey, if you want to pull it together, you can go right into varsity football.
Correct.
Thanks.
Yep. The way this will work, by the way, is we would classify as Division III, and then we would petition down to play in Division IV. That's in better alignment with the amount of kids we'll have in the program, being a new program, those sort of things. 7 games is a typical season, too, just so everyone is aware. We don't play 10, 15, 16. It's 6 or 7 games typically, and that would give you 3 home games, essentially, that we would ultimately play here. For me, even before I was AD, I actually met Tim and Matt talking about football, you know, a couple of years ago, before I was even here. So obviously it is something that's on my mind. But I'm also feeling it from the community and have felt it from the community in conversations, you know, being asked about if it's something that we would ever add here at Prospect. And that's both Barnstead and Alton. So we sent out a survey. We sent this to 8th through 11th grade students, and then we sent it to 5th through 11th grade parents of basically anyone at either of the schools. We had over 100 responses. That happened in 1 week. Within a day or two, I had over a dozen phone calls or direct conversations with folks, really talking about the excitement of the opportunity of bringing tackle football into our community. To me, there were kind of 3 key questions that we need to answer. Number 1, do we have enough players? Like, is there actually enough players in our current school and at Barnstead and Alton to form a team? Number 2, does this hurt any other fall sports? Does it cannibalize rosters of other sports? And then number 3, obviously, is what's the cost and ultimately how do we pay for it? And so I'm going to really go over those 3 things today, and I'll try to stay brief so we can have plenty of conversation. If we start with number 1, so is there a desire from the community to have football? And furthermore, does our current student population provide enough players to form a varsity roster? So In your packet, you'll see some charts. The first one is grades 9 through 11. Again, these are student results. We had 56 total results. You can see the breakdown here of each of the grade levels. We also asked, have you played tackle football before? Have you played flag football before? Just to get a general idea. You can see there, generally the tackle football questions about 50-50. So of those that responded, we do have quite a bit of folks, here that do play tackle football. We also asked them, gauge your level of interest from 0 to 10, 0 being I would never consider playing, 10 being please sign me up today, like I would do this right now. You can see on the next page in the document, the breakdown of those responses. Primarily responses 5 and above. We had 26 8th through 11th graders respond and say 10 out of 10, I would play football right now. That alone would be a varsity roster in New Hampshire playing Division 4, even Division 3, quite honestly. And I know it sounds a little crazy. When I played, it was 50 or 60, but somewhere in that 20 to 30 range seems to be kind of the sweet spot. And we're actually projecting well above that, and I'll talk about that as we go through here. If you look on the next page, this are the results from the parents. We sent it to both groups. Number one, to make sure it got to everybody. Number two, we want to see were there any breakdowns. Did a kid say, yes, I would play, and his parent put 1, like I would never let my kid play, so we could go through the data and make sure that we had accurate results. We had 67 responses from 5th through 11th grade. You can see it's a pretty even breakdown of the different grades, 5th through 11th. And again, information here about whether they've played tackle football or not. Go to the next page. Again, 42 of the 67 gave a 10 out of 10 for playing tackle football, right away. The next page gives you a little more detail about the data. And so in total, right now, and I'm using 8th grade through 11th because that would be our 9th through 12th graders next year. We had 56 people respond and say that they were either a 5 through a 10 of whether they would play tackle football next year. So our pool looks like 56 players. If even 50% of those really decided to move forward, that's a varsity roster. So I didn't want the number to be 26 because then if anything happens, you don't have a team. The fact that we came back with 56, we have 15 10th graders, 16 9th graders, and 8 8th graders that make up that group. And then, we have a bunch of 5th through 7th graders that are on this list as well that responded saying they would be interested in playing tackle football. The next question was, does this cannibalize fall sports? And so I went through and searched every name on this list to see if they played a fall sport currently. And you can see that breakdown in here. Again, it's on this sheet. The portrait sheet that's vertical gives you all the data. I took all the kids' names out. But in the spreadsheet, you'll see there's 75 total responses. 19 kids currently play a fall sport across this list, which again is 5th grade through 11th grade. If you take prospect kids only, there's 56. There's 12 that play a fall sport, and that's a mixture of soccer, fishing, and golf. So for me, this data is showing me that clearly there's enough to form a roster and have a healthy, strong roster in Division 3 or Division 4, but it's also not doing any sort of heavy detriment to any of the other fall sports in terms of their rosters and whether they would be able to continue to support strong teams here at Prospect. The last piece, and then I'll stop, is what's the cost and ultimately how do we pay for it. So the last sheet in your document, I worked with Collins Sports and a number of others to figure out ultimately what would be our capital costs. So these are the upfront costs. Yard marker set, field goal post installed in the ground. We need some additional player benches. You need blocking shields. We would look to have a blocking sled, those sort of things. Footballs. And broke all that down here for the total capital cost. Then I also worked with them to figure out ultimately what's our cost per player. So how do we outfit a kid with a helmet, pads, the extra helmet protection, girdle, knee pads, all that stuff. So basically you're looking at $1,000 per player is what the cost is for outfitting brand new. I will say as a caveat to that, I have some friends that coach currently, and they've already told me they have shoulder pads that are stacked up that are certified, and they'd be willing to donate, knowing that we're getting the program off the ground. So we could look, to find some help with things that are not helmets to bring some of that cost down as well. And ultimately, and Tim, I don't know if you want to talk a little more to this of what the breakdown is of what the actual ask is from a financial perspective.
Yeah, so James obviously did a lot of work here really fast, which is great, regardless of what the board ends up deciding. It's really good information, right, and good work. The capital costs, the equipment involved in starting a football program based on James's estimates, we've got a total of $42,920. In the capital plan that we presented earlier, in fiscal '27, that number is included. So if the board wants to move forward, it's already in what we would look to do as capital this summer. Obviously, if you decide not to move forward with football, we can revisit the capital plan and we can move some other things potentially into this coming year. The operating costs, however, if this is something the community wants, I would not recommend making any changes to your already proposed operating budget, already reviewed by the Joint Budget Committee and on your agenda to be recommended by the Joint Board tonight. I would turn back to the community and say, this is what happens when you want to start something and you've got this enthusiasm for it that it seems we may have. The school kicks in the capital preparation costs, like I just talked about, and we look to the community to fundraise the first year operating costs. And I would set that target, I would put up a thermometer at $40,000, knowing that it might not take that much. It might be a little less than that, but let's see where the community appetite is to put everyone's money where their mouths are. And a community that wants to do something like this shows up and does those things.
And I've already had questions about, can I join a board and, work with the Booster Club, and how do we raise money? That's from individuals and businesses. I've had a chance to talk to Hillary, who's here. They've obviously done great things for all of our sports. We've talked about this would obviously be an extra burden, but with the burden becomes, I think, a whole new group of folks that would join the Booster Club and help us raise funds. And again, that would be individuals and businesses that we're going to ultimately get this off the ground and make sure that the kids are outfitted appropriately and safely. In conclusion, for me, I think we have a unique opportunity here, given what's going on with the NHIAA. This sport in particular drives a lot of community involvement. I felt it already. We saw it in the survey results, but I personally have just felt it through all the phone calls and in-person conversations. I was stopped twice in the gym at the middle school basketball game tonight, asking about, hey, how'd it go? Did you have a meeting yet? I'm like, no, I'm actually going, in a little while. But my last thing I'll say, and this might be a little bit corny, just ask you all to envision, we've had some really great homecoming weeks here. Let's build on that success. Imagine having Thursday night girls soccer, Friday night boys soccer under the lights, Saturday night football game under the lights in front of our school here for our communities to come in. I just think would be a fantastic thing for Barnstead and Alton.
Questions? I have one. What's our liability insurance? Does that go up, or is that significant cost?
We would have to find out, certainly,
Yeah.
but Primex does insure plenty of schools, right, at
And-
the Division 3 and 4 levels.
So in this breakdown, I don't see coaching salaries?
Yes, and I knew someone would catch it. It's not included in there. I do have
Which is
it.
usually more than one.
I do have it, yeah. So the way we would have to do this is head coach and two coordinators, and then look to ultimately, ask for help on smaller stipends. We would start small, probably somewhere around 3,000, 4,000 for a head coach, 2,000 for the
Defense.
coordinators, and then probably 1,000 for the assistants. We would have that as part of early on the money that we're raising to kind of get this thing off off the ground.
And you may have noticed that my fundraising target was about 10,000 higher than his projected operating costs, and that's one of the reasons.
And then buses or transportation.
Yes. So that's not included in here. It'd be a pretty minimal cost compared to the rest of it. You'd only have 3 games, 3 away games.
Three or
about
four.
$350 per trip, usually somewhere around there.
Is there a requirement for an ambulance to be at football games as opposed to?
There's not, and we're actually having Gabby here is a significant piece of all of this. The fact that we have an athletic trainer on site is something that definitely puts a leg above for us.
If you didn't have a trainer, you would have to have
Yes,
ambulance on
either
site.
a doctor or an ambulance on site.
So this chart here shows we have 26 students that are currently interested.
That were 10 out of 10. But you'll see like even the 9s, the 8s, the 7s. So I went through both spreadsheets and got rid of duplicates and, you know, if a parent said yes and the kid said yes, and got rid of all of that overlap. And the final result was 56 kids that are from 8th grade to 11th grade that gave a 5 to 10 in their response that they would want to play tackle football.
So when you say you had over 100 responses, that's a combination of the students and the parents?
Correct. And I would say there's probably about 12, I think, duplicates that I had to pull out.
So we're gonna put this on a warrant article?
We don't need to.
Oh, I think we should. I think that would be a good
I will
survey.
say, on our agenda today, it says athletic department report. There's nothing under action items, so are we expected to make a decision tonight? Because I don't think that's okay.
No.
It's up to you.
Yeah, I'd like to push it to January.
I agree.
Give us time to think about it,
Yeah,
talk to
yeah.
community. at least
Yeah, and
come
I
up-
would like to hear from the community or find, I actually thought of that too, Mike, with some type of warrant article.
That's a great survey, right?
To get feedback from the community.
Yeah.
Because if the community is behind it and there is going to be buy-in, and I love your enthusiasm, it's awesome. I just want to make sure that this is a sustainable project and undertaking.
Right, it's
Right.
Yeah,
it's an
I
expensive sport.
And it's an expensive sport, and, you know, the town hasn't, Alton hasn't approved the town budget for 2 years, so, I mean, we have to be responsible as much as we want to provide every opportunity out there, and very, you know, it's flattering that NHIA came to us, but we also have to look at our needs, not just accept a invitation.
The way I'm kind of looking at those, just from the data that James has, you know, supplied, like if this was about like a class or a subject and there was this much interest in that class or subject, we'd probably offer it. So when there's this much interest in things in a sport like this, I would lean towards offering it. I don't, the cost and how everything kind of,
Mechanism.
yeah, like it's interesting, like, and I got to think about it more, but that's at least kind of where my head's at.
I just want to make sure it doesn't impact our current programs. We have open enrollment, you know, we have some really competitive teams here that work hard, and 11 of these responses, these kids currently play soccer. So that's when you play football, they're gonna have to make a decision. I don't want it to impact our competitive soccer program that we have built here. And we're just not a huge school, so I just want more time to digest, and I think with anything, this is how it comes to the table, and we have information, and
Might I suggest for the next board meeting that come back with what warrant article language might look like?
I'll have to think about that. I mean, typically, the purpose of a warrant article is to raise and appropriate money in addition to the proposed budget, which you don't need to do. If we're going to ask the community to fundraise, then you don't need to raise and appropriate additional money. Now, if you want to have a referendum in the community to solicit guidance or an opinion, we could look for ways to do that. Yeah,
I think we need to see it in writing, is basically, is, you know, what does this look like? What is your goals for fundraising? Just, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, look at something more tangible you can look at. What is this fundraising? Versus, again, you said, I know, again, you said warrant, but say that we don't want to pay it out of this money, we want to do a warrant. What does that language look like? I guess correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking for options, so we can make a decision.
I think a good analogy is, with the teacher's contract for 1 year, we could put that in the budget. But we always choose to put that out to the voters because of the amount of money involved. And I think we have a similar situation here. These people are gonna be on the hook for this program going forward. What are gonna be your recurring costs?
So it'll be somewhere around 6,000 to 8,000 a year. That would be recertifying helmets, reconditioning gear.
And what about the helmets? How long are they good for? It's been a long time since
I mean, so there's no like end date, but they
Okay.
get recertified every year. Your
So
shoulder
it
pads
becomes-
get recertified every 2. Your helmets get recertified every 1.
Does somebody come in, do we send them out?
We send them out. It's about $100 out.
Yeah.
So I've financed a football program before that was pretty big and pretty successful. And a helmet might last 4 years. It really depends on the number and the extent of the impacts that the helmet
Oh, yeah.
takes. But, you know, you would budget for a certain number of helmet replacements and for reconditioning annually. And then you would add coach stipends ultimately into an operating budget, right, going forward. So maybe the annual operating costs are something more like $20,000.
Can I ask a silly question? Why are the coach stipends so much more than the other sports?
So
They play fewer games, so I'm just curious.
there's a lot more. You have a lot in the summer. You have 2-a-days that you start earlier. You have a lot more practice. Some would argue there's a lot more planning that goes in. You have to get 11 people to go to certain places on every single play. So there's film review, and there is a lot more.
Is that comparable to other football programs, what they pay?
What was
It's
that?
less. It's a lot less.
No, it's
actually.
I got a friend who makes 11 grand as an offensive coordinator for a high school program. So I mean, it's
typically 7 days a week for the entire season, because on Saturdays usually play, Sundays film, kids are watching film, Monday starts it all over again, so you're
And then
starting
Friday
from
night scouting.
Yeah, so there's a lot.
So James is actually coming with very conservative, kind of lower than typical
Yeah.
coach stipends.
No, I think it's a great idea, and I support it, but I want the taxpayers to be aware of what they're gonna commit to. I think that's really, really important. This is a lot of money.
I agree. I'm interested in it. I just want to make sure the community is behind it and that it is sustainable and that, yeah.
So
right?
what would be a step to attain that? Because I'm thinking a little more logistically with NHIAA. We have a certain window where they're beginning their 2-year cycle. So this isn't something where we could say, oh, we want to start in 28 because they're within their 2-year cycle already. And they are starting to make schedules and do things for the upcoming year. That's not meant to put pressure on the situation. I think a month would be fine. But in that month, what can we do to gather feedback? Is that something you all are doing individually, talking to folks in your community? Is that something you want us to do outside of a survey like this? That's maybe a little more, this was, do you want to play? It wasn't, do you think this is a good thing? You know, so obviously the people who responded are athletes and are players traditionally, so.
And I want to add to that, you know, I gave James the go-ahead to email you all and to put this on tonight's agenda and to come talk about this and to do surveys. If you've imagined that I've thought farther ahead even than the things we've talked about here, you're right. My plan has always been, if it looked like things were going in the right direction, to talk to this board at some point about adding football in the next 2-year cycle. So I've been a proponent of trying to get there based on increasing enrollment and having revenues, which would then cover some of the financial commitments. Because this opportunity came to us is the reason that this discussion's happening now instead of down the road. And if our families and our communities say yes and yes now, then I think it's only fair for it to be a board decision.
But that didn't answer James' question.
Yeah, but I think it's more so like looking out at, like, I have family that's on the board for the junior nights and whatnot. They live in Alton. Like, this is something they've been kind of figuring out what they're going to do with their kid when he gets to high school because he's a big football player. So it's something like having a conversation with them and seeing what routes they thought they were going to take, or what, like, is this a better option for them? Things like that. So those are just discussions that I need to have with people in the community.
And Can I
I
say
would
one more
like to-
thing?
I mean,
Oh,
we
I'll
have-
wait, you
We
go.
have a public input,
Yep,
right? People are welcome to come. I'd love to hear what people have to say. It would be on the agenda, so they could come and speak. They can email the board, you know,
We have that public hearings before, where we can do a public hearing directly for all.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Public hearing
any of
before.
those options. I would just like to hear from the community
I
and
think
make,
if we-
and make sure that,
We put a public hearing on for the beginning of next board, at least to hear from the public.
yeah.
And how James had mentioned before, like a D4 football program, like there's not a lot that goes in, like, we can get kids to play a D4 football program. Like, I don't think that's gonna be an issue.
Yeah.
It's just more so of funding and things like that.
Yeah.
is the main.
I mean, I think that I have like an interesting perspective on this, obviously like being around the kids who would be a part of this program. And I think that just in my experience at Prospect, I think that especially because, you know, we're talking about how wrestling has increased in like number of kids, I think that student engagement in sports has definitely grown exponentially since I went to high school. And I think that there's definitely a lot of students that would want to do this. I mean, I know last year, like, there were kids putting up, you know, petitions around the school.
James, does that answer, did that answer
And
your
it-
question?
yeah, it does. It
I
definitely
think
does.
that student, like, drive is definitely high for something like this. But I think it is more about, like, the logistics of it and, like, the budgeting. And as you said about, like, our current programs have a sort of effect. Because one thing I noticed is there's 4 high schoolers that play golf on this list, and our golf team is already like really so that I feel like that's definitely something to consider, because that
Thank you.
kind of looks like the golf team is like.
Yeah, but that happens even with classes. I feel like it's like kids are gonna choose what they want to do for classes. Classes they don't choose get weeded out, and I think that's just kind of part of the. It's what the kids want, what the people want. And that's what is gonna end up getting the support.
To help answer some of the questions that are gonna come from the elementary age 5 through 8 students, are you looking at trying to give them an opportunity to play at the younger level? Because I know that.
That's what I was
Right.
just gonna add.
Some type of feeder program?
So, long-term, yes, you would want a feeder program in our 2 towns that we're running. Currently, you have a bunch going on around us where our kids are going. You have some going as far as Dover, you have some in Rochester, you have some in Farmington, although that program just went away. Junior Nights is a big one, and I actually spoke to folks from the Junior Nights. I spoke to folks from Rochester about this, because when they got the survey, they called me. So early on, I think we partner with them. We don't need to recreate the wheel. They have our kids there. We can look to maybe help push more kids from our community into those programs. And they also don't play in the division we're in, so it's not like we have Kingswood building our kids and then we have to play Kingswood on Saturday. You know, that wouldn't happen, but I think long-term, you know, we would want to look to do something here locally, either in partnership with someone or on our own long-term.
Yeah, because that's a key part of it. Like, there are plenty of kids that are already out there playing, like, at the younger level. And they get to high school, like, I played football from 10 to 12, and then once I got here, I didn't play football anymore because there's no options. Like, there are plenty of other kids out there at the younger levels playing football, and I think that's a key part of it. It's like, it's there, and then it's just a little bit more organization as it grows to bring that feeder program more so into town rather than have other towns.
So what I'm hearing is do a public hearing.
Public hearings,
But
perfect.
in the meantime, what I think Forrest was
Any
looking for
information.
is something in writing what that fundraising kind of looks like, the coaches. Get down to what the coaches cost, we have a total package of everything. Any chance NHIA might do a letter of what they're looking for, so it comes from them as well as an outside source?
Yep.
Any more data, that kind of stuff that can come to the board? so
And
they
like
can-
who there would be playing and where
So-
the travel would be.
So we know those answers already,
Oh, okay.
because it's, all the divisions are broken up. They're kind of just like waiting on us at the moment, which is okay. They knew I had to come here today and have this conversation, so. But there's no one crazy far away. It's all, you know, within an hour of what we typically do now, so. I have my marching orders, that sounds perfect for me.
And if some of that could come out before the board meeting, like the
Yeah.
NHIA letter, the your plan, all that kind of stuff, so we can actually read before we come to that, would be helpful to have all that in our hands.
Yeah, I'll send you all the survey results too, so you can see the names and all that. I didn't know if it was appropriate to have them here today, but I'll send you like the full report so you can dig through it.
I think it would be important to get an article, before the hearing, to get an article in the paper.
Sure, I think it's great.
I mean, summarizing, maybe you could work with Tim and summarize some of these results and then try to get people to come to the hearing, because we usually don't get a lot of people at our hearings.
I think we talked to.
You might get a few.
I think we'll get a bunch.
No, but I think the more information we get out,
Yeah.
Just think about that, if you feel, Tim and James, if the time comes that it might be more appropriate to be in the auditorium than in this area, that might make more sense if we're gonna have that many people. Again, seems like there's a lot of people want to, so we just wanna make sure we have space.
We'll figure it out, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Any other
I
questions
appreciate it.
on this?
Do you think you might want a committee like to help? An ad hoc committee we could put together
Oh,
some people?
most
A meeting to
definitely.
meet?
You know, I think that would be helpful to you,
If
you
it's
know?
a yes and we're moving
I
forward,
don't want you to carry the ball by yourself, you know?
No, we're gonna be pulling everyone in,
Yeah.
for sure, so it'll require that. So,
And I think since it's gonna be a startup program, that you really wanna lean heavy towards at least 5 coaches.
Yes.
And, you know, pay them, you know, I mean,
Yep.
pay them what they're worth, and,
Plus you need somebody to
because
fill
I don't wanna sell ourselves short. If we're gonna do this, let's do it right.
Yeah.
And a lot of schools have, like, their own teams will have their own boosters club. So like, Prospect Mountain only has one boosters club. Like, most likely this will be like a football booster club where they actually like raise money and that money directly
Yeah,
goes to
these
football.
kids will need some learning, so, I mean, it's good. Good,
I
good.
I have a question before we let you go.
Yes.
Just because you're here.
Sure.
So it's not football related.
Okay.
But from an athletic fundraising perspective, there's been some little fundraisers circulate. Are those mandatory? Are those required of these students?
They are
take part
not,
in them?
they are not required.
Can we, just make sure we're messaging that to coaches?
Yes.
It's not required.
Yeah.
I think it's a great opportunity. I think we just wanna make sure we're communicating what we're fundraising for.
Yeah.
Not knowing what we're fundraising for, people are like, what is this for? I don't know.
Sure.
If we could just communicate that back.
Yep.
I've
Yep.
heard mixed messages from the community on that, and I didn't even know, so I was like, it's gonna be her plan, we have some fundraising. and
The whole fundraising thing is very interesting because you raise a bunch of money and then you have 3 kids who did nothing for it, but they're gonna benefit from it, but we also don't make it mandatory. We're not selling goods in a lot of these. Usually it's just like you gotta put information into an app, but I will circle back with all the coaches to make sure everyone understands it's not mandatory, so, yeah.
This is very much a social media, internet age phenomenon. It used to be that when kids in school programs, whether they were sports or anything else, were fundraising, they would do something. They would wash your car, they would sell you wrapping paper, there was something happening connected with the fundraising. But now, our personal information is worth so much that just getting people to go to websites, put in their information, and make a donation is enough for companies to want to partner with schools, with groups, with teams, with activities for that form of fundraising. It's not my personal favorite. It doesn't violate a law. It doesn't violate any of your policies. And there are a lot of entities that approach coaches and teams really aggressively, trying to get them to do that sort of fundraising these days.
All right.
Thank you all.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Good
All
work.
right, next up on the agenda is SAU office. The technology report from Mr. Dumont is in our packet. Is there any questions on that? Seeing no questions. Next up is Matt, and I'm sure with a quick overview.
Yep, and just a brief presentation as well. So as our system-wide literacy committee continues to meet, I just wanted to update the JMA. We are in that process of surveying our faculty and staff. We were able to create a survey based off of our last meeting. And our next step is to take that survey information and then go back to ed reports, as well as the list that the state of New Hampshire has in terms of programs that they approve. And then we'll start to look at what we want to pilot and then set up the rest of the school year in terms of visiting schools and those types of things throughout, again, following our plan of attack that we started at the beginning of the school year. At our last board meeting, I had Kristen Lee here talking about the survey that we did, and out of our meeting, some questions arose and stuff like that. So she's here along with Dennis, our assistant principal, for a couple reasons. One, to kind of talk a little bit about some of those questions, but also in years past, I brought to you the data dashboard, and that included some grades, it included some discipline stuff and things of that nature. So this is sort of a live version of that. So I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. Also in your packet, one of the things our school counseling department does with all of our kids, they look at career pathways and graduation plans. So what you have in your packet is each graduating year, but the school as a whole. Why is this important? As we continue to progress through embedded honors and we look at that personalization, something that Mr. Folan brought up the last meeting, we're looking at our pathways, our career pathways, and looking and talking with our departments about can we start to create electives, a bank of electives, so when we know that there's a group coming through that are interested in particular areas, we can say, hey, we've got some electives if you want to try those out before maybe you go off to the Lakes Region Tech Center or some other CTE place, or if they don't want to, at least they have some opportunities to be able to do stuff here. And again, trying to look at their pathways and create around that. You can see from the whole school, again, if you look at kids in 4-year colleges, 2-year colleges, undecided employment, again, we keep working with them each year. It's not something that they have to know tomorrow. It's something we want to keep talking with them about. But when you look at, for example, on the whole school pathway, 16%, almost 17% of our kids are in the health field. And so what courses do we offer here that are in that health field, right? And so we're talking with people about, okay, what can we offer, right? That piece of it. So we'll continue to, or what ELOs can we do around the health field and things of that nature. So we'll continue to do that. Lastly, before I turn it over to those guys, as I talked to you before about the Ed Law 306 that's going into place, what I did here is that this is the rename. This is the high school curriculum credits and co-curricular programs. I don't expect you to read through this all, but what I did is I went through and I highlighted and italicized the word competencies, and because that's a big piece of the new ed laws, all around competencies and standards. And so as you look through this, you can see the number of times that the word competency pops up. And again, we've been working on this at the high school level. We're working on this at the middle level as well, and the K through 4. But again, it's talking about this idea of not seat time, but competencies, right? But if our rigor is there, then the seat time kind of goes hand in hand with it. But again, it's saying that we can do things here, we can do things out of here to meet those competencies. So, did you want to jump in real quick?
Well, I mean, if you can demonstrate competency without being in the class, then either you shouldn't have had to take the class, or we need to add rigor to what we're doing. That's number one. And number two, a lot of schools and school districts have stumbled into a dark alley and probably feel like they got beat up once they got in there by seeing competency laws, which are not just unique to New Hampshire, they're all over the country, and then announcing something to the effect of, we don't believe in grades anymore. That is not happening. That is not what we're doing. Competency ratings, typically on a scale of 1 to 4, add information to grades. If my son gets an 88 in US history in the first semester, okay, I might feel good about that. But if I can look at his competency assessments and identify the area in which he was struggling, I can say, hey, when are you going to stay after with your teacher to work on that? Because you have this area of weakness, even though you're doing well. So if used right, and if we can communicate clearly about the value and the purpose of competency assessment, they add context and information to grades. They don't replace grades.
So one of the things that came up the last time was this idea of students who were sort of considered honors level and things of that nature, and what's the rigor that our 9th grade classes are bringing together, because we brought them all together. Chris is gonna go over some of the conversations that we've had and some of the documentation that we pulled. I also handed out to you, we looked at math and science here. You'll see the 2024 summative of Unit 1 compared to this year's summative of Unit 1. Science is a little bit different because we did physical science last year. This year we're doing biology. But in the second part of that, you'll see Algebra 1, which was a CP level Algebra 1 versus our Embedded Honors Algebra 1 this year. And as you look through that, you'll see the difference in rigor. We talk about depth of knowledge, right? Depth of knowledge 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 being that sort of, true or false, yes or no type of questions, and obviously DOK 4. Am I able to synthesize? Am I able to analyze? Am I able to make those connections? So as Chris talks and she throws out DOK 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, you know what she's talking about.
So Matt read me, you get to start in a second, sorry, Chris. Matt read me a question from an old unit test in a science class, not a current unit test, an old unit test. And the question was, at the end of the experiment, whose responsibility is it to put away the supplies? The student, the teacher, a custodian, or another student? That is a depth of knowledge 1 question that does not belong on a high school summative exam. It just doesn't. So this project is really about, when Matt talks about increasing rigor, now I've given you an example, right? And that's not to embarrass anybody. Look, I was a teacher, right? You're looking to engage kids, you're looking to start from somewhere, it's the beginning of the year. We all get it. And you can have and should have some depth of knowledge 1 questions. But you should have few depth of knowledge 1 questions, and you should build as you go.
You got 30 seconds now.
That was pretty much the presentation.
If you can't stay over there, if you want to come around.
Thanks for having me back. I always like talking about our school, so I appreciate it. Before I get into the details of the data that we collected and the information that we looked at, I'm sorry, I feel like that microphone's right in the way. I just want to recap, particularly for people who are streaming, what the Embedded Honors actually is. So in September of 2025, we at the high school, with our incoming 9th graders, stopped tracking students so that all students in 9th grade are now able to obtain honors credit and honors level learning. I'm not going to read all of these, but I think you have the PowerPoint printed out in your packets, because I thought it was important, and actually Matt and I met last summer, to align the Embedded Honors Initiative with our core values. And I think you can see that they come together quite nicely, in that the Embedded Honors Program supports all of our core values. We talked about this, but what I really want to highlight is that the DOK1 are the simple questions, the who, what, and the wheres. The DOK2 kind of pumps it up just a little bit to say, okay, now we know who and what, but like, how did this happen, or why did it happen? The leap to DOK3 is actually a really big one, because it says now you have all this basic knowledge, but how can I use that to actually solve a problem? Which now we're getting into adult life skills. The jump to DOK4 is really big. Because what it's asking you to do is take 1 through 3 and apply it to something novel, something you've never heard of or never seen before. And that's where your real, 3 and 4 are where your real life skills come in. 4 is like the holy grail. And for the most part, when you start a new subject, you start learning about a new subject, you don't hit DOK4 right away. That comes like the foundation is 1 to 3. So keeping that in mind when we take a look at this. So what you're about to see is at the end of quarter 1 for 9th grade, I felt like it was a really good time for us to take a step back and see what it looked like this year and compared to last year. So I did two things. I pulled up the summative assessments for science classes this year, and actually I'll do math in a second. And for brevity's sake, I only chose two, but I did do it for all subjects. The 2024 physical science summative I chose was the college prep class. And I compared it to our embedded honors. So what I think you'll notice pretty quickly is last year, there were 50% of the questions were at that level 1, and there were none this year. Level 2, close amounts, but when we get to level 3, that big jump in rigor, it's tremendous. It had one question on the CP Science that was level 3, and it was a bonus question. So then we took all that and I went, okay, well, the rigor's much higher, but what did that do to our kids' grades? Because I was concerned about it. I was worried about it. So for grades, I took a little bit different approach. I took all of the 9th graders. So in 2024, I took all 9th grade, which included general classes and college prep classes. And I compared them to the embedded honors, all 9th graders in science. You'll notice that the column where it says 95 with an arrow, I chose that. That's a grade of 95% or higher. And I chose that because in order to get honors credit in embedded honors, you need to achieve a 95% or higher. So in 2024,
Is this for science only?
this is
or-
only
Okay.
science right now.
Okay.
So in 2024, there were 90 students that participated in all the science classes, and you can see the 95 percentile and higher is about the same. The mid-range, about the same. And then the 70 it's actually 70.4 and below. There are more for the biology 1 this year, 11%, it's a little bit higher. But when I reflected on what the rigor was and what we were asking kids to do, I actually was really impressed with how close all these numbers were. So then I did math. I compared, again, the college prep summative last year to the embedded honors this year.
Of the same unit? Because it
It's
looks
the
like-
end of the quarter. It's the end of the
it just
quarter
looks like
summative.
different- Okay, it just looks like different units to me. One is dealing more with ratios and absolute value, and the other one is dealing more with translations, almost, which is more of a geometry.
Oh, I see what you're asking me. So from year to year, are they different units?
Yeah.
Yes. Interesting. So they are, yes, they are, go ahead.
So I mean, to show, I understand what you're saying, but to me, this is two so totally different things. I would love to see what the assessments were for the ratios and
Which we can
absolute
bring.
value.
So
Do you
the-
know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
so the
it's-
scope and sequence is a little different.
Yeah.
But the purpose of that is to more look at the level, the types of questions that are being
Okay.
asked at an end of
Which
the
are
unit
totally,
assessment.
which are
Yeah.
different, and I
Yes.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. I think it's impressive. I mean, this is definitely some higher level math, for
Right.
sure,
Yeah,
the
and considering
embedded honors.
that other summative is the college prep class.
Yeah.
But like Matt said, one of the things, and we do this in education, I'm gonna say regularly, at least once a year, we take a look at our scope and sequence, and we see, is it working? Like, do we need to shift things around? Like, years ago, we realized that with some grades, we were testing them at the New Hampshire SAS on things we weren't even teaching until the end of the year.
Right.
And so we go back and we'll readjust. So your point is well taken, and as we move through the year, I can have that information. Right now, this is, with our scope and sequences, this is what it is.
I understand that. It's
Yeah.
just easier for, I think, for the board and for
Right.
public to compare. when
Right,
comparing
when
the
it's
same-
apples to apples.
Yep,
Absolutely, yep. So looking at the math, the DOKs are quite different. The college prep, 52% of the questions were the who's, the what's, the real basic questions. Whereas if you even compare to this year, 33%, still high, but it's math, right? So they're establishing a baseline as they go. And then when we get to the 2s and the 3s, again, that's the big jump from last year and years prior to this year, where 40% of the questions were at that higher level of depth of knowledge, which is more evident in the end of this semester, or end of the quarter grades, which you'll see. So when I took the grades for last year, because we were tracking, I took the algebra, the general algebra, the pre-algebra, and the college prep. So all of those grades are in there. This year, they all take the same class. About the same number of students. The 95% and higher is actually really close. That number's close. The mid number, a little further, and then the 70 and below, there's more of a gap. And one of the great things about doing this kind of analysis is, I've already gone back to the math department, which we've talked all year anyways. They knew that there were struggles. So now we look at this and go, well, how do we adjust it? And I do want to give a big shout out, I would be amiss if I didn't, that the science teachers really, I mean, these were new programs for all the departments. And I have to say, they really rolled their sleeves up, and they really did whatever they had to do to get this level of achievement with this level of rigor. So that was not easy for them, and I give them a lot of credit for that, and we're still pushing forward. And so what do we do from here? So with this data, and with the end of the first quarter, we are asking by departments, one, they're preparing for 10th grade next year, because as you know, these 9th graders will be embedded honors next year in 10th grade. So they're preparing for that, just like they did last year for 9th grade. They are, when they meet in their groups, in their departments, they're talking about what's working, what's not working, not just with the program, but what they're doing to teach the program. And we're asking them to continue to work with us. I'm actually starting co-teaching in the math department this week, and I will do that until we, can brainstorm. I really want to push that lower 70%. I want to move those kids. So that's part of the issue, or that's part of what we're looking at. And then to encourage them, and Matt's like the biggest cheerleader for this, which I'm thankful for, that as hard as it is, that we have to keep recognizing what's going really well, because we don't want to abandon that, and we want to lift each other up. And administrators, basically as administrators, we do what administrators do. We support our kids by supporting our teachers in all the ways where we can analyze this data, bring it back to them, problem solve with them. The only thing I don't have here, and Matt alluded to this, and I think it was we talked about it our last board meeting, was that concern about what behavior was going to do to the rigor and the achievement of our kids. And Dennis is here because he's our data guy for behavior. So I'd like him to come up and give you an overview of where we've been for the first quarter, and then maybe if we want to meld those two concerns or questions, we can do that when Dennis is
Kristen,
done.
I have a
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I just want to, and maybe this is stating the obvious, but so the point of all this, right, is to improve our math scores, or our scores in general, right? To some degree, to change students' thinking.
The approach is to provide all of our students the same set of standards, regardless of what we would deem as their level of ability. So, the standards in the previous years in certain areas, they wouldn't do the same curriculum if you were at a CP level or at an honors level. So they're exposed to all of the same things, right? Kids can obviously take it to a different level, and that's where you get that embedded honors, but they're all getting that same instruction. And obviously, the hope is that through that rigor, through that piece of it, we would see results in our SATs and things of that nature.
Because I feel like a lot of the questions that are presented on the SAT are presented in a way that are those higher level depth of knowledge questions. And that is where I think a lot of kids struggle. And that's just what I want to point out, is that that is one of the byproducts that we're hoping for by changing.
The DOK, the level.
Right.
Right,
And-
and just the prepping.
Right.
You know, you don't want your kids to go into your SATs seeing questions, they don't even know what to do with them.
Correct.
Right.
Correct,
Right.
because they're used to the, what is the.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
And before shifting to Dennis and discipline or conduct and how it relates to this, if I take one thing away from this, it's that we increased the rigor. The depth of knowledge was significantly greater, and student achievement basically didn't change that much. Kids rose to the occasion. That's something. I mean, it's the first semester, it's the first time looking at this data, but that's something.
Yeah, and not without hard work and struggle. I mean, I put that out
education.
there. You know, we didn't glide our way through this, but, you know, that's what happens when you do that.
How did you decide on the cutoffs, the 95 and the?
Yeah, that's a great question. Matt?
Thanks a lot.
That was a handoff, Matt. This is your handoff.
So for the last year or so, well, actually, last couple of years, we've been working on this transition to embedded honors, and we went through and looked at a variety of different scales and what would constitute off of rubrics and things of that nature,
Yeah.
where that would be quote unquote honors. And so that's where the 95 and above came from, right? And then we looked at sort of, again, looking at standards competencies, but also in a traditional setting, what's our baseline? And that became that 2, which is a 71. So that 71 and 94 is that in between, and then below that would be what would be considered an F.
So what's our failing grade now?
You saw right there.
Is it
those
70 or 71?
71, yeah, is that.
70.4.
70.4.
Yep, so that's, we've raised that a little bit. You know, I know you brought that up before. That, it just, as we looked at it from a perspective of both the traditional side and also rubric side, because a lot of our teachers are using the rubrics,
Yeah.
it didn't make sense if a kid had like a 1.5 or 1.6 to say, well, that, you're barely making it, but that's passing.
Yeah, I
So
never liked it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why we
I'm
adjusted
glad to
that a
see
little
that.
bit, yeah. And again, I think the kids are stepping up to the plate. Again, this is quarter number 1. At the end
Yeah,
of
this is
quarter
the
number
first
2,
time out of the box, yeah.
at the end of quarter 2, we'll bring in our history, our social studies, and our ELA to kind of give you a sense of where they're at as well. But we're seeing equal, if not better results there right now. So again, we'll bring that at the quarter 2 mark, so.
Question, this failing is 70.1 or 71?
70.4,
70.4 and below
yes.
is failing, so what's the cutoff for playing sports, 70.0?
That's a
I
great
haven't-
one. I think
James
it's like
left.
71 right there. So
think it'd be
I'd have to look
I
at the
think
handbook,
it's a
but yeah.
70.0.
Jude might know.
So, one thing that I wanted to
He didn't know.
kind of add to this is
I'd
that
have to, I'll get back to
I
that.
feel like we really should see how the embedded honors works out for 10th graders as opposed to 9th graders. Because the thing is when we look at this, we're comparing CP and then embedded honors. But
For the
9th
summatives.
Yeah, for the summatives. However, I know that for the past few years, our school hasn't had actual honors classes for 9th graders. We've only had CP classes because we haven't had like the resources or amount of students who wanted to take those higher level courses. But I feel like that's kind of an unfair comparison to compare a CP class and an embedded honors
Can you
class.
tell me, can you help me with that? Like,
So,
tell me, get
what
me
I
there.
mean is, for example, my freshman year, I would have loved to take honors everything, but I had to take CP because that was the highest level that we had for grade 9 courses.
Yep.
But if I had the opportunity to take an honors class,
Correct.
as opposed to the embedded honors class, I'm sure like the summative would have been harder than the CP summative, wouldn't it? 'Cause it would have been
Okay, I like
so
what,
I feel like
okay.
that's kind of an
Yep.
unfair comparison.
Yep.
You're comparing a CP class to an embedded honors class. But this, of course, the embedded honors one should have more rigor because it's being compared to CP.
Okay, I don't know what's happening. Hold on,
But we're offering more and more embedded honors, and I mean,
Spoiler alert.
that's, you know, people are, you can only offer what's there, so.
Right, so here's the other point to what you're saying, and thank you for like stretching it out for me, because I wasn't following you. The way you're thinking about it now is in relation to how it used to be. So what I mean by that is, you had your general kids, you had your CP kids, and you had your honors kids,
Yeah.
okay? The way it is now, it's the same, but they're all together. So with your CP class, I don't know how to explain, those numbers that I showed include the honors kids. However, we can't do an exact comparison, because like we were saying
Yeah.
earlier, there isn't. And I think for me, Jude, when I looked at it, the idea that the CP rigor was so much lower than what it is now, I don't know how much higher the honors rigor could be, that it would beat that.
Yeah, I definitely know what you're saying.
But I hear what you're
valid
saying,
point.
and we can do that next year. I mean, we're gonna have to continue to do it.
Well,
every year.
obviously, like,
Yeah.
it's a little too late.
Yeah,
to
no,
do
I
that.
mean, making that comparison,
Yeah.
but,
I
yeah.
think that it will definitely be interesting to see those results next
Yeah.
year because the grade 10 students actually did have the opportunity to take an honors level
Yeah.
class as opposed to a CP level class. So I feel like that comparison
I see what
has
you're
more
saying.
merit to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. Great.
I have a quick question before
Yes.
we move on to discipline. Sorry. How will this impact a student's transcript? And what I mean is, if you took a CP class, that stands out, right? But you probably didn't need a 95% to get credit for
Correct.
passing that class.
Yeah.
So now these kids are being held to a higher standard. So to get credit for an honors level class, you have to have a 95.
Yes.
Like, transcript wise, I feel like they're gonna be at a disadvantage.
So-
Just because they
If they
didn't get a
don't get the
95.
honors.
So what will
Right.
happen is, as part of our write-up for our transcripts for this current 9th grade class, there'll be a piece on the transcript that talks about embedded honors. So every school has an overview of their program of studies and the courses that they offer. And so by showing them that there isn't a general level class or a CP level class, that they'll be able to see that those kids that are getting that information, getting those scores, are at an embedded honors level. So the level of like a CP to honors, so like there would be no general in that case. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm explaining that
No,
wrong.
you are, so that's not my wheelhouse,
Yeah.
right? So college admissions, they know to look at that transcript
Right.
and see that this school is an.
And that blurb will be
school.
important for them to see that piece of it, right? And those kids that obtain the honors level, their transcript will show that that would be an honors level class. So,
Just like schools that have weighted grades.
Yeah.
So if a kid had a 3.9, you know, in a school with weighted grades, that's different than in a school with non-weighted grades. Right?
I mean, one thing that I've always thought about the embedded honors is I feel like it's kind of difficult to, even though every student is like learning the same thing, it's kind of difficult to weight one higher just because they got a higher grade as opposed to the total course load that they're taking on. You know, like, because that's very different from a general and an honors class. So what I mean is like, if I took an honors class and I got an 80, Actually, no, 90.
That
that's
wouldn't
reflecting
happen.
my grade. Not that that's reflecting my grade, but I'm just for comparison's sake. But somebody else took a general class, and they got also an IB. But the honors class, like, that was like so much more work for me because it was like an honors class. With the embedded honor system, that really doesn't matter since we're all learning the same thing, but just because someone gets a higher grade, that means that it's worth more on their transcript. I feel like that's kind of unfair.
Well, you have to understand, you don't just get a higher grade. You're learning at a different level. So if you think about that DOK that I showed, that honors level is that 4, we'll say.
Yeah.
Right? So they're going to get an honors distinction.
It's not a boost in their GPA though.
But all of,
It's not a weighted GPA.
well, if honors is that level 4, all of, you said that the embedded honors tests were all DOK level 2 and 3.
Guys,
Right
can
now,
we move
yes.
along? I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
right
but we
now.
have a lot more to cover, and this
Please.
is fascinating, but we still need to cover discipline,
Yeah.
and we have a bunch of other things to cover tonight, so.
Great, thank
I
you.
don't wanna, thank you, Kristen. That
Yeah,
was
of course,
Very
of
nice,
course.
very good.
It is something you talk about for a really long time, and we have.
We did.
Yeah, we have. So I'm Dennis Delbarone, I'm the assistant principal, and I'm here to talk about Q1, some discipline data and truancy data, because those are two of my primary responsibilities. And so following up Dean Lee on embedded honors in 9th grade, I thought I would start by taking a look specifically at 9th grade discipline. And even more specifically than that, classroom disruptions in 9th grade classes. And so the most common classroom disruption behavior referrals that we get are for disruptive behavior, disrespect, inappropriate behavior, insubordination, and unacceptable language are things that typically teenagers make mistakes with in classes on a daily basis, right? And so I did 3 years to sort of see trends. So I got 3 years of data there, and you can see we are trending very positively, going back to 2023, 2024 to 2025 this year. So our numbers are down. So total 9th grade disruption referrals were 21 compared to last year's 31. So I think that speaks to, to me that's a really positive sign. I think that speaks to part of the embedded honors push. It is supported by the research. When you have a higher level of engagement, when you have a higher level of depth happening, when kids are engaged in learning, they're not misbehaving, right? And so,
Dennis, you
Dr.
said
Broderick,
20, I have a puzzled look because you said 21 this year, 31 last year, and how many was it the year before that?
90.
90.
Yes, sir.
Huh.
So those are your current juniors right now, right?
That is correct. Yes.
How's that going?
We'll see in a second.
Great question.
Moving along. So yeah, the numbers overall, there are dramatic differences between 2023 and 2024. And so I think this is a really positive trend. I like seeing that, like I was saying, when students are engaged in learning, they're not misbehaving. And so the more engaging, the higher depth that we're pushing our students to. There's also, with a heterogeneous classroom, there's some positive peer pressure to stay on task, to pay attention, to be engaged in the learning. And it's really early. This is only 1 quarter's worth of information, so it's not a huge data set that we're working with. So it's really pretty preliminary. But initially, I'm very happy with how 9th grade is looking. And so if we look at the building overall, so this is a breakdown by grade level. So you can see like the 11th graders here. Our current 11th graders were at 81, and so when they were ninth graders, they were at 90. So I guess
I think that really
they're doing a little
speaks
bit
to
better, right?
To the new administration and the new staff we have.
Yeah, I would like to take full responsibility. I don't know. Some of our numbers are, so we are overall trending higher total referrals than last year, right? And so ninth grade has come down. All the other grades have gone up, specifically 10th and 11th grade. We see some pretty big jumps between 24 and 25. And I think, a lot of, that's a pretty big increase, but we've also changed some of our practices this year. And so one of the things that I wanted to really focus on this year is holding students being accountable for coming late to school. And so we've really, we did very little with that last year, and that's been a new practice, and I feel like it's being, we're catching kids and we're implementing consequences, and I think as the year progresses, we'll be able to take a look at the tardy data and be able to see is our increase in referrals yielding a decrease in tardies to school. Quarter one, I think it's kind of too early to really make that call. But that's one of the things we're also really trying to dial in and focus on class cuts and kids trying to avoid class. And so we've got a concerted effort in paying attention to that. Also, the overall number of these are just this is just raw data, like number of referrals. And so when your population increases, there's going to be a natural increase in the number of behavior referrals that you have. Yes, sir.
So last year, the cell phone restriction in this school was maybe 85% of the school day, and of course this year it is 100%. It's an outright ban. Can you ballpark the impact of that? It seems like it could be a factor.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, we actually track cell phones separately.
Okay, never mind.
Through the behavior referral data, but I can say that I've been really pleased with our response to the cell phone policy. I actually think it's way less of an issue this year than it was last year, as far as the number of kids getting in trouble for inappropriate use of their cell phones.
Thank you.
I didn't bring that data, but I could for a future one.
I said ballpark.
But
Thank you. That's great.
I do see that, I'm really happy with the way the school has and the way we wrote the policy and the students' response to it and parents' response to it. I'm very happy with how the cell phone piece is working out. I just wanted to give a couple of bullet points about adjustments to our discipline process this year to just give you an idea of the things that I've been working on with the team. So I mentioned the tardies. So historically, students, our policy, our handbook says if you're tardy to class 3 times, you get a teacher detention. And that really is for periods like 2 through 7. For those kids that come late to school, they kind of just fell through the cracks and it was just like, oh, I guess I'm late to school. And so that tardy to school, came on our radar last year, and we said we really have to try to figure that out. And so now we're treating tardies to school just like being tardy to any other class. We've got a system to be able to pull data and see the data. We see it happening, we're tracking it, and students are getting assigned consequences. So you came, just like tardy to any other class 3 times, tardy to school 3 times, yield the consequence. We are addressing class cuts in real time, so we have a system where attendance is getting checked throughout the day. And as kids are getting reported hey, they're in school, but they're not in this class, we're getting notified, we're finding the kids, we're getting them back in class where they belong, where the learning can happen. So that's been pretty successful. We're also really trying to address behavior referrals in, it's not perfect, it's not pure real time, but pretty close, where the same day Historically, a lot of times in schools we get swamped or they don't have the best systems in place, and those behavior referrals can sit for a few days before it's actually addressed with the student. It's happening on the same day, a lot of times within the same period, like within an hour of the teacher submitting it, we're addressing it, and so that's been really successful. Another piece that we weren't great at last year are holding our seniors to making sure they're in good standing. So we have a tradition here of senior privileges, which is if seniors have study halls at the beginning or end of the day, they can get those privileges where they don't have to come in for those, or they can come to school late, or they get to leave school early. And so the handbook has always said, like, you need to be in good standing to be able to maintain those privileges, but it was really hard to sort of stay on top of and monitor all that. And so what I did with the team is we, defined what, very clear definitions of what being in good standing means as far as your academics and as far as your attendance goes. And we are pulling reports, we're reviewing it regularly, we're having conversations with students. They get a probation period, like, hey, your grades have dipped, now you're gonna be on probation, you have 2 weeks to pull them up. If we're not pulled up in 2 weeks, then you're gonna lose, we're suspending your privileges, right? So you need to be passing your classes, you need to be coming to school in order to benefit and reap those rewards of senior privileges. So that system is something that I'm proud of that we've really dialed in this year and made some good improvements on.
For good standing, could you just brief us, is it pass-fail or for senior?
Passing all, so as far as senior privileges goes, so we defined good standing as you need to be passing all of your classes.
But that should be just, in my opinion, that should be what is expected, but to get
Yes.
privilege, you should be a little bit above passing.
We're one step at a time, so I don't disagree with you. And so, with the bar is pretty low, if you ask me.
Idea, because I don't have a kid in this school, so that's why I'm asking.
The bar is low, and so you need to be passing your classes. And we do have some seniors. Senior year is really stressed. There's roller coaster of senior year.
But step one is holding them accountable,
Yes, ma'am.
right?
Yep.
So that's step
And
one.
so-
Step two is determining
You're not there
level.
yet.
Right.
We didn't even have the bar before, so even though it's a low bar, there's a bar, and we'll work on, we'll review the practices and see, and perhaps make adjustments to that in the future.
An awesome team approach.
Thank you, Dennis.
And then just a little bit about truancy. And so again, we tracked back to 2023 for quarter one truancies. We've got currently one student with 15 or more. So a lot of students kind of fall into, we've got this year we've got 18 students with 5 or more truancies and unexcused absence, right? 2 students with 10. The numbers are kind of similar from year to year. Not really much of a big significant difference. Hopefully, I have put in another sort of team approach with this. We've developed, we've implemented an attendance team that meets bi-monthly. That has never happened before. And so we are looking at the data. We are looking at the students who have accumulated truancies. Working with the guidance counselors to figure out what are appropriate interventions. So we're meeting with students, we're calling parents, we're sending letters home, we're working with juvenile justice. And so again, this is just quarter one, and this is kind of a new practice, this attendance team. And so I'm really hoping that as the year progresses, we see some differences from historical, hopefully our efforts now that are kind of brand new will yield some positive results.
Sorry for all the questions.
That's okay.
Do you have a system in place that helps parents and students keep track of their truancy
Yeah, well, so parents can see all of the attendance record on Infinite Campus, so that's
but they can't go in and adjust for it to mark your student as an excused absence or anything like that?
No, so that, there are, the policy is there's certain types of events that are considered excusal. And so current system is parents will call in and talk to our attendance clerk. And if the parents have unique stories that, that will get kicked to admin to sort of make the call on, is this an excused absence or not? So it either requires some documentation, like from a doctor's, they don't have to talk to us to provide a doctor's note, but other than that, they call in to be able to excuse absences.
Thank you, Dennis.
Any other questions? That's all that I have.
I just want to finish off real quick and the amount of time and effort our teachers have put forth to get us to where we are today and to continue the growth that they're doing is a lot of lifting and a lot of work that they've done, and we keep pushing the envelope and they keep stepping up to the plate and doing those things. And I think, as Kristen put it, there's been some ups and downs, but the fact is that people continue to work every day and busting their tails to make this happen. So they're in every department across school. So kudos to them. And then obviously I think from our administrative team, they've done a lot of work in reflecting on what worked last year and what didn't work, and put some things in place to continue to look at accountability pieces. But I also think with the restorative pieces that they're using, it's yielding positive results. They're having good conversations with kids. Kids get in trouble. We know that good kids make bad decisions, but it's not get out for 10 days. When I first got here, there were 10-day suspensions for vaping. And that's not here anymore. There's a lot more going on. So kudos to them for working as hard as they have.
I'll briefly add, if we're doing our job right as the administrators in the school, we're no longer reacting to the classroom learning environment interruptions, right? I'm not assigning blame, but in the past, at times, the numbers don't lie. It was reacting. This happened, react. This happened, react. We've got to the point where we've steadied that. So now we can use our discipline system for truly what it should be for, supporting kids to be back in school. We never got a chance to do that in the past for one reason or another, but we are now able to use the discipline system to truly realize better outcomes for kids. And that's a testament to everyone here. So there you go. That's DOK level 4. We just analyze and synthesize all of that.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry for so long.
A testament from top leadership down. We're working
Absolutely.
together, so we appreciate that. Speaking about that, next up is the superintendent.
So I've sent you 4 memos, and
I've been here since 5.
if they weren't important, they wouldn't be here, but these things are all important, and I know you're having a long meeting tonight, I apologize. We are transacting the business of the public school district. So in the order on your agenda, the Joint Budget Committee, unless Mrs. Wood prefers, or Mrs. Landry prefers to talk about this, I will tell you that the Alton Joint Budget Committee, formed under the terms of the Joint Maintenance Agreement, convened last week, held a public hearing as they're required to do, and voted not to make any recommendations to change the proposed high school budget, and to endorse it. So under action items tonight, you have the FY27 proposed operating budget for the high school, which we do need you to vote to recommend in this meeting. And if you choose to make changes, it's because you're choosing to make changes because you don't have any recommendations to make changes from the Joint Budget Committee.
I would like to make a motion at this point to propose the fiscal year 27 operating budget.
Second.
There discussions or anything brought to the table?
What would happen if we include football? Do we change that budget?
You'd have to go back to the budget committee maybe, that's right.
No, I mean, you can do it here if you want to do it.
I don't mean now. I want everybody to have a chance to talk about it. But what happens if in a month, when we have this meeting scheduled and everybody gives us their input and we decide to include it in the budget instead of a warrant article?
So I'm going to recommend that you hold your January meeting on the second Tuesday instead of the third Tuesday. which is not what you normally do, because that day is January 13th, which on the Department of Revenue Administration calendar for SB2 communities, which Alton is the last day for a board to recommend a warrant article connected to collective bargaining. So you would have the opportunity to recommend warrant articles if you met on January 13th for any purpose and meet the deadlines required both for SB2 and traditional town meeting calendars. And that answers your question, Mike.
Yeah, I just wanna make
You could
sure.
do it in January if you
I
meet
just
on the
wanna make
13th
sure
instead
that,
of the
you
20th.
know-
And I think you're gonna find that you need to meet on the 13th or earlier because you have some open collective bargaining items that aren't done. So there's going to have to be a meeting if there are warrant articles connected to that by January 13th.
Okay, so shall I make a motion to,
Go retract, if you want to retract the motion first, if it's looking at it.
I'm looking at Heidi.
The budget's the budget right now. We need to proceed with the Alton and Barnstead school budgets.
This affects both of them.
It would affect both of them if you change it.
What we're asking is, do you have to take the vote tonight, or can it be tabled until that meeting decided that this board, this is joint boards, to put it in there? I'm just asking a question.
We'll get that.
I would prefer that we do a warrant article if we go ahead with football. Make it a separate thing, people know exactly what the money's gonna be spent for. And it's the only thing it could be spent for. It couldn't be, if we overestimate it in our budget.
I think the only concern with that is then we wouldn't be in this round for NHIAA. It's too far off. I know that's what the concern would be. You won't make this round for football. That's why, we're coming back to there and talking, and I understand exactly what you're saying too. That's why, do you need this voted on, what we have tonight, and then we go from there for next month?
I don't know, I just feel like we've worked so hard on the budget and that to put it off for something that nobody is quite sure about yet, it's kind of a big what if. And again, nobody is, so I just, that's how I feel.
Well, you do have a motion second on the floor, so.
It would be cleaner as we meet with the Alton Budget Committee this Thursday and the Barnstead Budget Committee starting probably the first Monday in January, if you have recommended this budget.
Yeah.
You have various ways of changing it if you decide to in the future, whether it's through a warrant article or through an actual change.
Okay, that sounds good. So let's take a vote on that, since it's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, it's unanimous, passes through.
Okay, thank you. We've already discussed the 5-year capital plan. Proposed warrant articles. So I have 3 non-budget related, so not to raise and appropriate any money, warrant articles. These were emailed. I emailed these to you. Active voice, not passive voice.
Yes.
I emailed these to you and put these on the table in front of you tonight. The first, and those of you on the Shared Services Committee met with Attorney O'Shaughnessy to discuss this now a couple of months ago. This is the language we would use. Shall the school district vote to create a planning committee to study and evaluate merging SAU 86 with SAU 72, Alton School District, in accordance with RSA 194C2, 1 and 5, majority vote required. That's the Barnstead language. The Alton language would be the same, but it would say with the Barnstead School District instead of with the Alton School District. This is the first step in a 2-year process that I explained below, so I won't read it to you, and that we've already talked about. It does not mean that the voters would be voting to merge SAUs. The voters would be voting just to establish a study committee, which would then have all of the following year to meet and make a recommendation on warrant articles for that next March for the voters to consider actually merging the SAUs. There's no faster way to do it. This is what the law requires. So this is step 1, and that's the language. We would need you in each board meeting, right? We would need you to recommend these articles, right? We would need each board to do that. So we will talk to some of you tomorrow, and we will get back to the rest of you on that, but that's what it is. If you want to discuss it, it seems to make more sense to discuss it together. You can also discuss it separately, but this isn't a surprise. We've been talking about this for a long time.
I mean, so we can't recommend these warrant articles?
Why don't you? And then I'll check. That way, if you don't have to take further action, you won't have to, and if you do, nothing changes. How's that? Go ahead and do it, and then I'll check with Jim.
I'll make a motion to propose the warrant articles for both Barnstead and Alton?
Yeah, I'll find out. Yep.
Okay. For the school district to create a planning committee to study and evaluate merging SAU 72 with SAU 86 in accordance with RSA 194-C:2, I and V. So we'll do that one first.
I'll second it.
And just, I'm gonna take a roll call vote, since you're asking two different boards here.
Yeah.
So, in the notes, we'll take a roll call vote on this. So, Eric? Yes. Randy?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Eunice?
No.
No?
Yes, Ann.
And yes. Jason? Yes.
Just to confirm, this is just to put the committee together to study.
Yeah, asking the town.
This is just the warrant article
Correct.
to ask if the town wants to put a committee together to study the possibility.
Okay, yes.
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 Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
next warrant article.
Next warrant article. So it turns out we have an RSA in New Hampshire, 194:3-C, that allows a district to create a non-lapsing revolving fund only to support the operation of a program, a specific program. So this article would establish a revolving fund to support the operation of the Granite State Academy blended learning program, online school with the in-person component at TL Store. So the warrant article reads, shall the school district vote to establish a non-lapsing Granite State Academy revolving fund in accordance with RSA 194:3-C to be funded by tuition and other revenue paid to Granite State Academy, an alternative online program operated by the Prospect Mountain JMA. The purpose of the revolving fund is to support the operating costs of Granite State Academy. This fund shall be non-lapsing and shall not be appropriated except as authorized by the district at a future annual meeting. Such programs shall be audited annually. That's required by law. You have to have an annual audit. Now, what this means is tuition coming in for Granite State Academy wouldn't add to, here's the problem. When your budget gets approved every year, that's all we're allowed to spend. Imagine if 100 kids enrolled in the online school next year. We don't have the money to pay stride for those kids in your budget for next year because we don't know that 100 kids might enroll in the school. That's why this RSA exists and why you're allowed to establish a fund like this. So tuition paid for those students would go into this revolving fund, and then expenses related to the online school would be paid out of this revolving fund, which you have the authority to do. In fact, we can just do it as long as it's for the purpose of operating that school, or that program, I should say. The reason there's this line about shall not be appropriated except as authorized by the district at a future annual meeting means that if there's surplus left in the revolving fund, I'll make up a number. You take in $10,000 and your operating costs are $8,000. You have $2,000 left over. Okay, that's not a whole lot of money, but if it happens 1,000 times, that becomes a lot of money. Taking money, excess money like that, surplus, out of the revolving fund and either appropriating some into the CIP capital reserve or returning it to the towns for the purpose of reducing property taxes. That would require future warrant articles. So you could have a warrant article in a future year, I don't think it would be a year, but in a few, asking the voters if it's okay to pull $400,000 out of this revolving fund for the purpose of lowering property taxes, just to send it back to the towns. And if an article like that passed, then you would be able to do that. So this is a way, I told you a month ago, I needed to work with Jim to find a way to cover operating costs for this program because revenue and expenses are unpredictable and ongoing. And this is the way to do it. The good news is, I didn't know until Jim looked it up for me that we could even create a revolving fund under New Hampshire law. I used to have several revolving funds, but under the laws in a different state, so I'm used to this, but I haven't seen it here. Fortunately, we do have this law, this RSA, that allows it. So that's the purpose. Did that make sense? If it didn't, we need to talk more.
So
No,
I'd
but I
like
do
to
have
make
a
a
question.
motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just have one question.
you want me
What's-
to-
And this is kind of a bigger one than this, but what is the status of people paying their tuition?
We're gonna get to it tonight.
We're coming to that.
It's next.
But I was gonna say, if you could build something in here
Mm-hmm.
where enrollment would be contingent upon, otherwise we could be in a negative.
Mike, do you want me to make a motion and then we can discuss it? Or?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wanted to see if there's anything that will impact your motion though, you know?
So you're protected against that,
Okay.
going negative. You know, in a variety of ways, we have protections against that.
I make a motion to propose a warrant article to establish a revolving fund to support the operation of Granite State Academy Alternative Program under RSA 194:3-C. Does that cover it?
That covers it.
Okay.
Second.
Now, open for further discussion? Hearing the chirps, I will, take, no, I think we'll call this one, I think. All in favor?
Aye.
Third,
Any opposed?
Yes.
One opposed. My bad.
Okay, so the third warrant article.
So the third is a pair of warrant articles, and this addresses your ability to expand the Granite State Academy program from 7th to 12th grade all the way down to kindergarten. And what that requires is, at least Jim's opinion, is the best approach, is to have each district, once again, you don't have to adopt the provisions of RSA 194D again, because they already did, but vote to designate each elementary school or K through 8 school as an open enrollment school under the provisions of the law already adopted, but to specify that the purpose is to allow students who reside outside of each district to enroll in an alternative program serving elementary school grades, established in partnership between the Alton and Barnstead school boards. So this is the language, I'm not going to read it, but you have it in writing, that we would recommend.
So I'm going to propose a warrant article to extend each district's open enrollment program to include grades K through 6 under RSA 194-D
For the innovation school plan?
for the
She got
innovation
it.
school plan.
Second.
Motion and a second, is there further discussion?
We just ensure that line 3 of the Alton warrant reflects Alton
Sorry,
School
yeah,
District.
we will, we
Okay.
sure will.
Just want to make sure
Sorry,
it doesn't get copy and
Yeah,
pasted.
no, we, happened once.
Any questions? I will do a roll call on this one too, because this actually affects 2 different towns, in the case, make sure it's legal, or if it's not, you have to vote separately.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Eric,
Yes.
Brandy,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Eunice,
No.
Kenny,
Yes.
me, yes.
Yes.
Lauren, yes.
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 Okay. So there's our warrant articles.
So I've given you a draft of a letter that I've shared with some other superintendents who are members of the school care risk pool to share with their boards. I think there's no real time limit on this, but it is a chance for us to correspond back with the school care board of directors about how we ended up in this situation and ask them to meet with us for a little more in-depth discussion about some of our concerns, which I've summarized with bullets in this letter. Because I did just send it to you today, if you want to wait and deal with this as an action item in January, that's what I think some other boards are likely to be doing. I think that would work fine. So it's entirely up to you, but at least now I've shared it with you, and I'll be getting feedback from our attorneys and from some other boards and superintendents over the next few weeks.
So we're gonna. Are we
Kind of
gonna-
up to you. What do you want to do?
It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah,
I'm
it doesn't matter.
comfortable either way.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the letter to school care board of directors on behalf of the JMA joint board.
I'll second it.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes, thank you.
Open enrollment in Granite State Academy updates. Did I also put on the table for you?
Yep, it's right here.
Oh, good. Oh, so I'm the only one who doesn't have that one. But I already know what it says. I am looking for your guidance in non-public on some issues regarding past due accounts, to a question that was asked earlier. Thank you. But that's not a public discussion that we can have later. As you heard in November, we have received some payment, but we still have some outstanding accounts. Regarding the Granite State Academy program, your contract with Stride K-12 allowed us to soft launch essentially the program without any marketing or advertising, but it does exist. Currently, if a family finds it online and enrolls, they are being allowed to enroll. And they're attending classes at the Indiana Digital Learning School, which is not billing us. We are not paying, because the terms of your agreement with K-12 state that you don't pay anything until you receive revenue. Because they understand the political situation here is this is new and this is different, and it's really unclear how it's going to work out. Last week we had 27 students who, with their families, had found the thing and enrolled and were taking classes from New Hampshire. This means that it's time for us to start a really probably challenging conversation with other districts, with the Department of Education, maybe with the legislature, right? That's how this is going, and to talk about what the future might look like for this. We have a lot of flexibility, right? The open enrollment law sets a threshold for tuition, but we are allowed to set a lower amount or negotiate a lower amount. We know your costs in this, so we know the room you have to operate. There is a non-public conversation that you can have about this at that point. So we have a lot of work in front of us, but this is the next step in this program coming online. Stride has hired a full-time New Hampshire-based director for this program. She's on their payroll, not ours. Same financial terms apply. You don't owe Stride anything until you have revenue from which to pay those expenses. But she's a real person who has actually come here a couple of days, met with our administrative team. I spent a couple of days with her and some other folks from Stride, all ready to start getting her up to speed and onboarded and getting things rolling. So this could pick up steam relatively quickly on the one hand, but on the other hand, there's a lot of time built into our contract with Stride to allow us to make this work for New Hampshire. So I'm certain there will be some strong feelings, maybe even a sense of panic around it, but actually nothing's going to really happen that impacts anybody until we have plenty of time to try to work things out. So if you have any advice for me, I'm happy to take it. But right now, we are on the verge of a lot of things being up in the air, and we're getting used to it. And then the last thing is a legislative initiative update. I don't have a written memo for that. I'm sure you don't mind. But we did meet a week after your last meeting in this room with our legislative delegation. All of your reps and senators showed up, with the exception of one who was homesick, which is wonderful. And a senator and a representative who don't represent Alton and Barnstead also came due to relationships they have with members of our delegation and with us, and Dave was there, Matt was there, and we had a robust conversation with our legislative delegation. I think it's safe to say that whether ultimately everything we're trying to do works out or not, that it's safe to say they appreciate that we are trying to find ways to innovate and provide as many options as we can for New Hampshire students here in our public school system. You know, for years, you've been able to go out and start a charter school or do a private thing or start a homeschooling co-op, but options within the public school system have been really hard to come by. So again, I know there are a lot of opinions and more are being developed every day about some of the things we've been trying to do, but again, regardless of the outcomes, there's a reassuring sense of appreciation from a lot of people for at least what we're trying to do. I can leave it at that.
Any questions for Superintendent? On actions items, we already did the operating budget, we already did the 5-year plan, capital plan. We do not need to vote on it now. District meeting warrant articles.
Just did.
Did. I have a first reading of a policy, so I'll take a motion on that.
Make a motion to approve first reading for JICL-R for synthetic media and deepfakes.
Second.
Seconds all around. Is there discussion on this? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Members of personnel, I'll be personnel just here.
Yep, so make a motion to approve the hire of support staff, of a special education teacher and a crisis interventionist.
Have we had a crisis interventionist before?
We haven't. So in the budget, and members of the Finance Committee talked to us about this in detail, we funded system-wide, instead of a separate social worker for each school, 2 positions. And so we're funded for a social worker and we had a social worker resign, and really within a week, without us doing anything, had somebody with a social work bachelor's degree, so not a school social worker, but a qualified crisis interventionist, show up and get rave reviews in his interviews. And this is funded out of the social work function, which might be part of the actual guidance function in our budgets. It's in guidance, but we have not had someone with that title.
Right.
We've had the social work title, but that's where it's funded from.
Right, and then roughly, how many people applied for that position, and what was the search committee look like for that?
So these guys did I don't think we got we did post. Did we get other
We
applications?
got one other application,
We
but it didn't have the qualifications that this individual did. So.
I get it.
Yeah, it's also the.
Yeah, it's one of our coaches, it's somebody with a relationship to the school, but who's qualified and has worked in education and has worked at other institutions. The social worker was in on the interviews along with Dave, Paul Borsch.
I said I'll second her motion.
You get it?
I missed what you said. He's
Girls basketball coach.
this individual.
Yeah, he already works for the school on a stipend contract as a coach.
Just the coach, not a teacher.
That's it.
He was,
No, he hasn't worked here full-time. He's worked at other schools.
And to be clear, he's not a teacher, he's a crisis interventionist.
Further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, it is passed. Next up is our second public input, same as the first input. Please come to the mic, state your name, 3 minutes, totality of 15 for anybody.
Kim Pika, Barnstead. Several years ago, during meetings about my position, members of district leadership shared details about a lawsuit happening in one of the school buildings. I was not involved in that situation, so I should not have had access to that information. And yes, there are plenty of situations in education where staff appropriately share information for the benefit of a student. Context matters, and just like in any profession, stories circulate, people talk, and awareness naturally develops over time. It's part of human nature. But when the leaders are the ones sharing legal matters, I can't help but question where the moral compass is even pointing. This wasn't just a story that might help me in the position I was stepping into. It was a legal matter containing sensitive information. At the time, I was honestly conflicted about how I felt. On one hand, I knew it was wrong. I imagined myself being the family involved. On the other hand, I did what I would do for any colleague or friend. I listened, I provided support, and I kept it confidential. But looking back, especially after how I was treated just days later, the moral of the story hit me. I learned exactly how quickly my loyalty mattered. 1 week, legal information was shared with me as if I were part of a trusted inner circle, but the moment I said no to stepping into a role I wasn't qualified for, I stopped being convenient and everything changed. I was treated like an insider 1 week, and the next moment I pushed back, I was suddenly on the outside. That made me question the purpose of why they shared that information. Was it meant to create the appearance of trust? Was it an attempt to pull me closer so that I would feel more comfortable going along with decisions that lacked honesty? Was I brought into an inner circle, not out of professional necessity, but as a tactic to secure my compliance? And while I was part of that inner circle for 1 week, I raised concerns about my own situation. I asked who would support me if there were any issues because I didn't feel the teachers' union would protect me since I wasn't a certified teacher. The response was, "Don't worry, I got your back." Yet a week later, you had my back by having me escorted out of the building. If legal matters are handled this way, what other boundaries are being ignored? Were other people brought into the circle of trust only to become collateral damage when they didn't comply? I'm not claiming to know the specifics behind the terminations and resignations or the legal battles this district is funding, but here's the irony. The community is told those details are confidential, yet legal information was shared with me without hesitation. The public is told nothing about legal fees, the settlements, or the real reasons people leave. The community speculates because that's all they can do. And while everything else is shielded by confidentiality, taxpayers are expected to keep funding battles they're never allowed to understand. When leadership shares confidential information in one moment and hides behind confidentiality in the next, it becomes impossible to trust how they handle anything. Trust falls apart when the truth shifts depending on who's in the room. What happened here was not only a confidentiality violation, it highlighted the deeper issue, where selectively sharing information can create an illusion.
That's the 3-minute mark, so thank you for your input.
All right.
Anybody else with public input?
I would like to request that somebody reach out to me personally about this violation, as well as the,
If you have a violation, please put it in writing so we know what the violation is.
All right.
I'm not sure what the violation you're talking about is, but listening to that, so please put it in writing.
all right.
Anybody else from the public?
Hi, Hillary Henry Barnstead. So a couple things. I'm the president of the Booster Club, as some of you may know. We are still looking for people to help with concessions at basketball games, home basketball games, which leads me to a conversation about football. So James and I talked about ways we could possibly help support the football team and the parents of the if you guys vote this in. So my concern would be another booster club being formed, because we're pulling from the same pool. It's the same people, it's the same money, it's the same donations. It's who's gonna do homecoming, like Booster Club always does homecoming. Who would do that? Is it, based on teams, who supports who? I guess I would just caution, not that I can control a booster club being formed, but I would hate to have multiple going against each other when we're all trying to support students and have the same sort of goal. So that's kind of just my 2 cents. And also regarding the attendance, so I just have a couple questions about that. The handbook, and I know you can't respond, I'm just stating questions, but I think the handbook says after 3 days you need a doctor's note. But I guess my point is that my daughter is a senior, she has senior privileges, she's a varsity player, she gets honor roll. I called about a couple months ago, or a month ago, had her released a half hour early, and then we were told it would be unexcused if there was no doctor's note. Now, she's under 18, I'm her parent. I feel as though within moderation, if I'm dismissing her, I don't need a doctor's note. If it's in excess, I completely understand that. But I think we need to also, I understand you want kids in the school, you want them learning, you want them in the seat, but I think we also have to just take case by case. If a kid is always leaving early, I understand that. She hardly ever leaves early, so I just want maybe to have some clarification on that. You don't need to answer, it's just, I'm just putting this out there that it kind of bothered me because, like, to be questioned about why I'm dismissing my kid, it's really none of your business. It could be mental health, it could be something else. If I'm dismissing her, that's the end of it. Unless I'm dismissing her every day, a half hour early or 2 hours early, I don't see the big deal. So that's really it. Thanks.
Maybe under 3 minutes.
Well, to that point, when I talked to, oh, sorry.
Have you met with the principal?
No, I haven't, because it was a one-time thing. I did send an email when she had her wisdom teeth out that, that she was going to be gone for 3 days, but I also had stated that she had a doctor's note, but I also had stated, like...
I retract the question.
Add your time at the mic, so we're going to stop there, but please reach out to the principal. Is there any other public input? Seeing no, because any other questions too, we'll end public input. Seeing no public input, we also we'll close public input. Lauren, now if you have questions.
When we were talking about the truancy, I know it's elementary to have a system in place like Pickup Patrol, but knowing that system, that's all I can speak from. Having a way to keep organized late attendance, reasons, having parents be made aware, that their child is absent, or they could go in and make those adjustments, or they say, like this morning, your daughter is going to come in late because she has a, doctor's appointment. You can update that so it's not left to someone's voicemail who may not get to it because they're busy. If you're calling in and that kid has a game, like to avoid a situation like that. Sorry, those are my children.
Well, we know.
Yeah,
they're
distracted. Yeah. So to help, cut down on, stuff like that happening, if there's a system where every administrator, if we have an emergency in the building and we have kids skipping class, there has to be some accountability in real time, all the time, of where kids are. Are they aware? Can they update dismissals in absences and lateness and all that? I just think it might be good to have an app in place. I mean, we have an app for everything, and the school doesn't have an app for attendance and stuff like that. It just might be a good thing to look into.
Sounds like a good follow-up item to talk about.
I agree.
Because if your child is under 18, your parent should be responsible as an unexcused absent. Like if you know your kid's home sick, you can mark that absent.
We've talked about this.
Yes.
Yeah. Remember?
What?
We've brought this issue up before.
I know it was shut down before, wasn't it?
No? So, yeah, we can talk about it next month. We can talk about it next month.
Yeah, might have been previously.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so with that being said, we'll move on to future follow-up items. We have tried public schools, special education, and we'll use building and grounds again. Obviously, we're going to have the football discussion on our next meeting. Is there anything
We
else?
should have something on negotiations,
What's that?
teacher's contract,
Teachers' contracts. Okay.
professional contract.
Yeah, teachers' contracts, and then also policy of attendance. I would also like to talk about possibly going, those that want to use Chromebooks, be able to take a Chromebook and take it home and have our stuff on it rather than all this paper all the time. Some of the boards that I'm on, that's what they have. Those that want paper, take paper. Those that don't, be able to use it, and you bring it home, you charge it up, you bring it back, your responsibility. But like, we have them here. Just want to bring up this discussion, see how people feel. We'll put that on for next month. Is there any other business go into non-public? No. Our next future meeting, do we need to change that date? Is that what we're doing?
I'm suggesting that you schedule that meeting for January 13th, because if you don't, and you have warrant articles that need to be proposed related to collective bargaining, we'll have to call a special meeting anyway by the 13th. So why not just plan right now to have your regular board meeting for January on the 13th, and then be done for the month?
13th good?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds good. And that's, after that, we're going to non-public, and after we'll probably come out and adjourn. So I will take a motion for going to non-public.
I make a motion going to non-public under RSA 91-A:3 II, A, and C.
I'll second it.
Thank you.